Welcome to the Poisoner's Cabinet. I'm Sinead.
And I'm Nick.
And this is your weekly podcast exploring the lives of the great poisoners, macabre murders and captivating crimes from across the centuries, and creating curious cocktails inspired by the tales that we tell. And it's episode 241.
Hurrah.
And at the time of recording, happy birthday, Nick.
Thanks.
It's your birthday. Birthday. How are you on your birthday?
Old, so old. So I old.
Has anything today made you feel particularly old?
Just old. My bones.
Your luck of words, apparently. Yes. Your bone.
My bones. My bones are creaking.
Lovely, but you've had a nice day?
A lovely day.
Lovely day. So far.
So far. Could go to shit later.
Absolutely. But so far nice. We've been brunch. We've hung out for a bit. It's been very nice.
It's been delight.
Yes, I've started drinking. You haven't.
I haven't, not yet.
I'm drinking for you, Nick.
Oh, well done me.
And I made a bad choice. I made a very strong drink, and now I'm regretting it. But it's not my episode, so woohoo!
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Any poisonings this week?
But I shall not poison anyone. It's my birthday.
Yeah.
I shall be generous.
The Emperor is benevolent.
Exactly.
Very good.
No poisonings this week.
That is quite reassuring for all.
Nice.
Lovely. Well, speaking of not poisoning anyone, because it's all of our birthdays, particularly Nick's, I think it's time for us to thank our delicious Patreon subscribers.
We most certainly should. This week, we must say thank you very much to Laura Vu,
to Cindy Cruz,
to Brittany Gearing,
to Susan Gerondale,
to Jess,
to Crystal Burgess,
and to My Dog is Toast.
Oh God. Is your dog all right?
Yeah, well, Toast, apparently.
Well, if it's named Toast, that's fine, but not in the Ghostbusters kind of way. This chick is toast. What?
Who knows? Write in, let us know. How is your dog?
Thank you, sexy, delicious Patreon subscribers. We had fun on Patreon this week.
Yeah.
We delved a little bit more about Queen Victoria. Things that we couldn't fit into last week's episode about the 7 assassins. But we talked a little bit about the stalkers who followed her in quite unusual ways.
More Victorian criminals.
Exactly. And then also threw in some of her sauciness.
Because why not?
Because why not? There's just lots of random facts about Victoria. We like to throw in...
Everyone has a random fact.
Because it's the Poisoner's Cabinet way. If you want to know what the hell we're talking about, please do consider joining us on patreon.com/the Poisoner's Cabinet, where you get extra episodes from us every single week, as well as bags of bonus content and a lovely community of wonderful people that you can chat to, share ideas and thoughts about all of the episodes. It's a great way of supporting us and the show, and please consider it for any podcast that you listen to. So, Nick, we also have a shout out this week.
Okay.
I know it's your birthday.
Yes.
But we have another of our lovely listeners' birthdays coming up. Dear Britnick Nicola, our lovely Patreon subscriber, also known as Nick. Nick's birthday is on the 19th of March. So happy birthday, Nick. She also did a little bit of research. She said she's not really one for star signs, but she's a Pisces. And she thought she'd do a little Google to see what famous criminals are also the fish sign.
Oh, good shout.
A lot, apparently.
We're all psychos.
So, Richard Ramirez, John Wayne Gacy, Dennis Rader, Aileen Wuornos, and many more. Anne Bonny as well.
Okay.
Yes. So, that's a lot of crazy people who are Pisces.
So watch yourself. That's all we have to say for that.
Happy birthday, other Nick. Well, Nick, are you ready? To drink birthday cocktails and talk about birthday poison.
Birthday cocktails and birthday poison.
Yeah.
Sounds very special.
Or we could drink birthday poison and talk about birthday cocktails.
Okay, let's do that.
Should we do that?
Yes.
Just birthdays all round.
Birthdays.
Way!
Talk about me. It's all about me.
Okay. Should we go with the first one?
Yes.
Oh, let's. Hooray. It is Nick's story this week on his birthday, but we can't possibly have a story without a cocktail in hand. As you know, dear listeners, every week we choose a secret ingredient that is inspired by the tale that we tell, and it will flavour our cocktail of the week.
Yeah.
Nick, this week's secret ingredient is
Beijing.
Beijing. Are we off to China?
Or maybe so.
Is it a China episode? Is it? We normally only have those on Patreon.
It's very exciting. We'll find out.
Everyone's screaming and yelling and dancing at the moment.
As they should.
One of Nick's China episodes, maybe. If it's not, then Beijing is wildly confusing.
Yes.
Wonderful.
It's all about ducks.
Isn't that Peking?
Yes, but Beijing used to be called Peking.
Okay, good. Thank you for telling me that, because I didn't know that. So with Beijing as your inspiration, your ingredient, what have you come up with?
Well, I was going to make... There's a Chinese spirit. I think I mentioned there's a Chinese spirit called Baijiu.
Yes.
Which is like a grain alcohol thing. It's vile.
Okay, good.
And I thought I had a bottle. So there's a few cocktails that I've seen with this stuff. And I thought I had some from when I've been out there, and I searched my shelves and I don't. So I've had to go with an alternative.
It's a good story,
it was too
Nick.
late to buy in the end.
So none of that.
So
none of that.
So none of that. So forget all of that.
You could have. Look what you could have won.
Look what you could have had. Look what you could have had.
Something vile.
Because I wasn't organised enough.
Good. Okay, so what are we having? What
have
else don't you have?
We're going to have a China martini.
A China martini?
Yes.
Ooh, a martini. Oh, that sounds
Like a
dangerous.
Chinese one.
A Chinese one. Okay,
Yeah.
well, what could be the Chinese twist? Could it be some Peking duck?
Yes.
I wouldn't mind some of that. A
Got
little
ducks.
nibble on a duck pancake.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Get some duck-infused gin.
Would that work?
Probably not, but
No.
okay. But I'm willing to give it a
You
try.
got bacon-infused bourbon.
Yeah.
Duck-infused gin is not going to work.
I think that's a stretch.
Well, while we work on that, I think it is high time for us to go into the Poisonous Cabinet kitchen and shake up a storm. So we'll see you in a minute.
We'll see you in a bit.
And we're back.
Hello.
So, Nick,
Yes.
China martini.
China martini.
What makes it China-y? I
find
wonder.
out.
Well, it looks almost crystal clear. It's got a faint hue to it. A faint hue. Not sure what that could be. Hopefully it's not awful. Well, there's nothing left but to dive in.
Indeed.
So, happy birthday
Happy birthday.
and Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much.
Ooh, okay. Very floral.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's lychee.
It is indeed.
Lychee. Yay!
I imagine dust off on the back of the cabinet. I saw it. I thought, I've got that. I bought that 4 years ago.
Is it still all right?
Well, who knows?
Well,
but
it tastes very nice.
yeah, it tastes no good.
Oh, I love lychee. And it's so rare that we've... I don't
Absolutely.
know.
I think it's like the second time we've used it.
I think it probably has. The first time was way back in Frog Cottage. Yeah.
A long time ago.
Ooh, a lychee martini. So I'm assuming...
That's actually nice, that. I like that.
that's incredibly delicate. That is dangerous.
Nice.
So lychee liqueur, gin, anything? Is there a vermouth in there? Oh, they're so crisp and clean. Delicious. That'll wake you up.
And a drop of triple sec as well.
Really?
Yep, a wee bit of triple sec.
Oh, so it's like an orange martini with a twist.
Yep.
Wow.
But yeah, much less orange than lychee. Much more lychee.
Yeah.
But a bit of a orangey twang in the background.
That is delightful.
That is very nice.
That is very, very nice.
Yeah.
Nice and crisp and
Yeah.
clean. Oh, that's
Like that a
dangerous. Yeah. It's almost on the edge of being too perfumed. I think lychee is.
I mean, whatever you have with lychee, it's going to be that has that very, very, very perfumey sort of
Yes.
taste to it.
But it's not over the top and it's not
and it's
sweet as a
no.
result of it.
No, I think that's nice. You wouldn't have too many.
And also,
Very
it seems
nice.
quite strong.
It is potent, absolutely. Yeah, spirit forward indeed, but a sneaky spirit forward.
A sneaky one. You would probably think, hey, this is fine.
Yeah, I'll have 4 of these.
You stand up and you have no legs.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that would be the sneaky assassin, that one.
The sneaky assassin, that's the other name for it. Okay, wonderful. Well, the China martini, there's nothing else to say other
No.
than it is a delight.
It's a delightful thing.
Well, with these firmly in hand, the sneaky assassin
Sneaky
firmly
assassin.
in hand, I'm curious to know where we're going and if
What
it's
could it
time for
be?
a story. Well, are we going to China?
Maybe.
Oh no, are we not?
Yeah, we are.
Oh yeah.
So yes, back to China. It has been a while.
It has been a
It has been a
while.
while. So, and also we're taking a trip back to the 1930s.
Oh.
30s Beijing, or Peking as it was then.
Ah, yes.
As it was then, now Beijing. Mainly the foreigners called it Peking. The locals called it Beijing, or a variation of Beijing.
Okay.
In local dialects and things, which I won't even attempt to pronounce. But in the 30s, say now we have 4 pages of Nick's history of China.
Oh god. I mean, it is your birthday, so we can't complain.
So strap in, everyone.
How am I thinking that this is not going to be the roller coaster that you envisage?
Fucking thrilling, I'll have you know. It's interesting.
I'm sure it is. It is
Interesting.
We love your China episodes. But 4 pages of history. Everybody, get ready for a roller coaster.
You're just prolonging the inevitable.
Christ, all right. Yeah, you're making it more enticing as we go.
It's going to happen. Just...
It's the worst birthday ever.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Is
We
everyone
love.
sitting comfortably?
They better be.
Has everyone got a drink in their hand with
Get
a
a
spare
drink.
one?
A spare one, a lovely cushion, a blankie, and also we love Nick's history lessons. Everybody enjoy.
Right. So yes, 1930s.
I want to go to the toilet.
Shut up.
It's 1930s. Okay.
1930s, and China is going through huge changes in the 1930s. In 1911, so 20 years prior to that, the Xinhai Revolution had ended 2,000 years of imperial rule. So
Oh.
emperor's gone.
Oh, okay.
Emperor's gone.
That was the last emperor.
The last emperor was it? Yes, it was 1911. Puyi was the chap's name.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, so I know these things. I can talk to you about him as well if you want.
Please don't.
But this had all left a bit of a void of actually who was taking over. So you had the Nationalist Party who had instigated this revolution. They were known as the Kuomintang, and they were under Chiang Kai-shek, who was the leader of them. They were sort of nominally in charge, but it's a big old country, so they controlling like big population centres. But the gaps in between, it was like, who the fuck knows? Some areas in the countryside had returned to like feudal warlords and things, sort of like marching around the place, taking control and things. So it was all a bit chaotic there. And then you also had communists under Mao Zedong who were poking their head up, and they had established the People's Liberation Army and wanting to establish a communist state as well. So you had also these sort of three groups of people fighting out for control. And with all that going on, the Japanese decide to take advantage of that instability and invade as well.
Yes.
So you have a lot of people fighting. They're not quite sure who they're fighting, but they don't like each other.
They've got a schedule. Like, who are we fighting this week?
Who are we fighting today?
We think it's these guys,
I
but
mean, every now and again there's a random alliance between sort of groups of people to try and fight someone else. That lasts half an hour before they're killing each other again. So it's all a bit
it's a big old mess.
It's a big old mess indeed.
Aye.
Now, the Europeans had been properly settled in China for around about 100 or so years by now. So we've covered that back in a previous episode with the history of Hong Kong and the Opium Wars. So they were known as the unequal treaties, had established a lot of European sort of trading ports and their rights to set up posts in Chinese cities on the coast and things like that, and establish their presence and vie for domination. It became known as the Scramble for China. As sort of all the various Western governments, sort of Britain and France and Germany and Russia and America, were all sort of vying for influence and sort of various monopolies on trade and what have you.
It's so different from now.
Yeah, so it's all great. They were setting up these sort of embassies and areas in cities and things like that. And to keep themselves safe and secure, they settled themselves in dedicated areas that became known as legations. And in Beijing, this was known as the Peking Legation Quarter, where all the Europeans pretty much had their embassies and their homes and their businesses were all run from these areas.
Is it one of those systems where that's almost like it's English soil?
Exactly, yeah. Precisely so. They said they set up schools there for the Europeans. They had hotels.
Oh, lovely.
And they also, they had their own police forces and things. So much like an embassy, we're like, okay, this area is under British rule, and they had their own police force. The Chinese authorities had no jurisdiction whatsoever inside these areas.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Their authority ended at the gates. So in these places, obviously the standard of living was incredibly high. They were making a lot of money, enabling them to live a pretty good lifestyle, which on the same money they would have been middle class in London, in the same money in Beijing or Shanghai. They can afford how they like.
Yeah.
So they're having a grand old time, while sort of thousands of ordinary Chinese were living outside these places in the streets, getting hungry. There's a fucking war on. They've been invaded. They're not quite sure who the government is.
Yeah.
All these things, these sort of turmoil, and they're just getting rather angry about this inequality and things. So so it's all a bit of a bleh, really.
Described it as that, didn't you?
Just a bleh. By 1937, Beijing itself is in trouble. The Japanese are on the outskirts, poised to take the city. So they're sort of running riot in the north. And Beijing is flooded with refugees coming from the countryside for protection into the city. What's more, you also had Russian refugees coming in. The Russian Civil War.
Oh yes, it's 37, isn't it?
You had the Bolsheviks against the White Russians, as they were named. So the Bolsheviks won. All the White Russians who supported the aristocracy and what have you, all fleeing, and a lot of them fled into China.
Yeah,
going to the big cities where these sort of enclaves had been set up, so a huge amount of Russian refugees as well.
Yeah.
So it was a big old mess, basically. It's a big old fucking mess.
Poor China.
Crime was rife, poverty is rife, corruption and bribery, that's more often the sort of the rule of law is how much money you've got. There are gambling houses and brothels on pretty much every corner. If you've got the money, you can do what the fuck you like.
Still the same.
Yeah. And sort of the limited authorities would happily turn a blind eye for a few coins.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So with all this going on, those who were living in the legation quarters, they must have realised, okay, this can't last forever. This shit is going to hit the fan soon.
We're very happy and protected behind our walls. Those walls are starting to look a bit thin
they're
now.
also looking a bit flimsy. And this is going to come to an end pretty soon. So they're living the sort of, it is the end of the Roman Empire type thing. They're living the high life before it all just goes. So one of the people who was living in the legation quarter in Beijing, and had been for many, many, many years, was a chap called Edward Theodore Chalmers Werner. He worked for the British Diplomatic Service. He was actually born in New Zealand. His father was Prussian, and he worked for the British. So he came from all over the place. Edward and his wife Gladys had moved to Beijing in 1917 when Edward had first been posted there, and instantly they fell in love with the place. Became absolutely besotted with the culture and the people, and they loved it. Edward learned Chinese. He became fluent in Chinese, which is an incredibly difficult thing to do. One thing he was less good at was the sort of politics of his job. He was there for the diplomatic service, so he was there to promote British interests, but most of the time he found himself arguing with his superiors about how what they were doing would impact ordinary Chinese lives and things like that, and advocating for sort of the normal people, where the British would go, no, bulldoze it down and build a mine there.
This is going, what are you talking about?
But there's people's houses. Who cares, people?
Yes,
there's enough people around here.
Yes, it's just locals.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, frequently he found himself at odds with his superiors. So he was often sent off to like wildly remote places. His superiors thinking, that'll teach him, and him going, fucking fantastic.
Yeah,
there's a new place I've never been to before, new things I can learn, new people I can meet, and he was having a grand old time.
Wow.
When he was back in Beijing with Gladys, it soon became apparent that they were unable to have children of their own. They tried. So in 1919, they adopted a 2-year-old girl from an orphanage in Beijing, who they named Pamela. Not exactly known whose Pamela's parents were. It is thought they were Russian refugees who had fled from Russia, not able to look after a child. She'd been put in an orphanage. In 1922, Gladys, the mother, dies. Records give it as meningitis that she's caught, so she dies. And Edward is left to bring up this 5-year-old daughter by himself. And it is a role he actually takes incredibly seriously.
He seems like a lovely man.
Like I like him. Yeah. So he has his
salt of the earth.
He has his anger issues. So if if people disagree with what he thinks of is morally correct, he will defend his corner and he will lose his temper very quickly.
You can understand
but generally it's for the right-ish reasons.
Reasons. Yeah.
I mean, colonial. But at the time they were his strongly held beliefs, and he would defend them. He doesn't hesitate to get into an argument with people if they disagree with him. So he's now responsible for looking after Pamela. He retires from the diplomatic service and devotes the rest of his life to looking after his young daughter. He teaches her Chinese, and at a very young age she is fluent.
Nice.
At a very young age. He takes her travelling around the country to see all these amazing places. He encourages her to speak and interact with local Chinese, which causes a fair few raised eyebrows amongst the other Europeans who are like, oh no, keep them far away. We have walls. We don't need to speak to them.
Yeah. We want all the benefits of this land and everything that they produce. But talking to them, that's mad.
Yeah, so people go, Edward, are you mad? Sending your daughter out to engage with these people. She goes to a European school within the legation quarter, fair enough, but she is frequently seen riding around the city on her bicycle, visiting locals, doing her shopping in sort of local markets and stuff like that, chatting away with people, and really getting integrated into society, really. By the time Pamela enters her sort of teens, Edward has decided to move his house out of the legation quarter and to the streets just around. So he's just outside.
Okay.
I mean, it's cheaper out there. He's no longer working, so he's got to economise where he has to. But also a lot of sort of scholars and artists and things are starting to move outside of the city, outside of the walls of the legation quarter.
Yeah.
It's a bit more bohemian, in integrating with the locals and things like that, and not keeping themselves quite so closed off, and wanting Pamela to experience life in China. Yeah, and they have a traditional Chinese house. It's called a hutong, I think it is. It's sort of like a nice courtyard. Yes, they have servants. They have staff, but so do the Chinese who could afford it and things, so absolutely. On the 7th of January 1937, Pamela, who is around about 20 years old at this point, she leaves home late in the afternoon, tells one of the servants, Yo Hing, that she will return for dinner about 7:30 that night. She takes a bicycle, as is her wont, and she sets off for the Wagon Litz Hotel.
Nice.
She has arranged to meet one of her old school friends, Ethel Gurevich.
Okay.
Yep, and they're gonna meet up, and they're gonna meet up. So, I'm not quite sure where that was going.
They're going to meet up and stare at each other.
And there's no conversation. Let's leave. Let's go. Yeah, still you. All right, I'm off.
Good. Well, this has been a nice 3 hours.
So, they meet at the hotel and they return to Ethel's home, where Ethel's mother serves them tea and cake.
Cake.
For an afternoon, which is delightful.
We could have had cake as an ingredient.
We could have had cake as an ingredient.
Could have had cake. It's your birthday.
We've had cake as an ingredient.
But birthday cake?
No, didn't think of that. Anyway, the pair set off again around 6 o'clock, and they're meeting a third friend, Lillian, and they're meeting at the ice rink.
Oh my God, they're going to get skating.
They're going to go skating, and they spend the next hour or so enjoying themselves, skating around, having a lovely time. 7:30 comes, and Pamela makes her excuses to her friend. She's got to go home for dinner. Mm-hmm. Fair enough. She's going to be cycling home. The two girls are slightly worried about her cycling back. It's now it's quite dark. It's sort of middle of January, winter. It's dark, but she's no, it's fine. She cycles all around the city. She knows where she's going. She knows the place like the back of her hand. Not a problem. She wasn't fine. Spoiler. By 8 p.m, Pamela had still not returned home. Now, Edward is not overly concerned. Pamela had stayed out later than she had said she would occasionally before. Mm-hmm. She had always turned up eventually. I mean, he didn't like it. He didn't like her staying out. Oh, she's with boys, doing ungodly things with boys.
That's a lot to be shouting from the door.
Yes.
Don't do ungodly things with boys. I'm getting the milk.
Slightly learned to accept that she's not a child anymore.
She's 20.
So she's 20. So he gives her a bit of leeway. And says, okay, she's not back. When she's not back by 10.
Yes.
That's like, okay, nah, that's not like Pamela at all. So he asks the servant Ho to go to the skating rink. So can you see if Pamela's still there? She's lost track of time, having a lovely time. See if she's still there. Ho goes to the skating rink, and the workers there are closing up for the night. So they say one of the last customers left about half an hour ago. There's no one left here. Some of the staff think they remember seeing Pamela. They said, we've had over 200 people have been here this evening. So she might have been, she might not. We have no idea what time she left, but she ain't here now.
Yeah.
He returns and relays this to Edward. No news of Pamela's whereabouts. Edward decides to go out himself. He takes a torch and he starts searching the surrounding streets. Perhaps she's come off a bike and she's lying injured somewhere. He returns in the small hours of the morning. No sign of Pamela, and eventually he goes to bed. Early the next morning, 2 rickshaw pullers are walking along the base of the city wall near one of the old towers that was known as the Fox Tower. In a ditch near the base of one of these of the tower, they see a pack of dogs who seem to be really interested in this sort of bundle down there. And they think that's a bit peculiar. They shoo the dogs away, and as they do so, they get closer. An arm flops out from this underneath this covering. Find another chap who's passing. They say, go and alert the authorities. Run to a phone box, which is about half a mile away because there's not that many phones around. Run to a phone box and alert the authorities. The 2 rickshaw drivers, they secure the scene as much as they can. They get rid of the dogs.
Yeah, good.
They cover the body with bamboo mats.
Well
because
done.
a bit of a crowd is drawing, so they try and preserve dignity and preserve the crime scene, I suppose. They try and cover it as best they can. Colonel Han Sichong of the Beijing police soon arrives. And instantly he knows this is not a Chinese person. This is a white woman from the legation quarter. And he's well aware that the murder of a wealthy foreign woman is going to people are going to start asking questions about what's going on. And it's going to be big news. Yeah. And also it's going to be of interest to the authorities inside the legation quarters as well. So in theory, because the body is outside, he has jurisdiction.
Yes.
But he knows, I'm going to have to go in and ask questions of people in there, and I have no authority to do so.
Yeah.
So he says, okay, can someone go and alert the commissioner in there, a chap called W.P. Thomas, and say, go bring him out, bring him to the crime scene so we can work on this together. To begin with, they're not sure who this woman is. They know she's a white woman, but that's all they know. Her identity is quickly confirmed when Edward, he has heard a body has been found, a white woman has been found. He rushes onto the scene, and as soon as he recognises the jewellery, he recognises the clothes that this body is wearing, and he collapses to the floor, utterly distraught, discovering his daughter like this.
That's horrific.
It is. Commissioner Thomas is not too far behind, and one of the constables accompanying him also recognises Pamela and is able to give a formal identification that yes, this is Pamela Werner, who we have found. Now this bit gets a bit grim. So
Oh, God.
I apologise now. She is sent away for an autopsy at the Peking hospital. And during this, the doctors uncover the true extent of her injuries. The cause of death was a brain hemorrhage, caused by several blows to the back of her head with a heavy object. As well as being badly beaten, her heart had been removed from her chest.
What?
Her liver, bladder and kidneys were all missing. She was completely drained of blood.
What?
She had a large cut to her throat, and it was suspected that someone had actually tried to remove her head, but hadn't been able to get all the way through or had been interrupted. Her right arm was severely cut as well, barely hanging on, really. They believe that she had been sexually assaulted before her death. And so the lack of blood at the crime scene, it did indicate that she had been attacked and murdered elsewhere and then dumped in this part of the city. Her clothing was mostly intact, apart from a bit scuffed and torn, likely where she'd been dragged around.
Yeah.
And all her jewellery is untouched. It's there. She's still got her rings, her mother's ring, a necklace. Her wristwatch is broken and is stopped just after midnight. So that's when they suspect the initial assault has taken place. But everything's still there. So robbery can't be a motive.
Can't be the motive.
She's left with everything.
Has she been... So they've attempted to dismember her.
It looks like that, absolutely.
Removed the organs.
But they've removed everything
so
on the
been
inside.
Cut open?
Cut open, yes, absolutely.
This is not a nice birthday story, Nick.
It's not a jolly birthday story.
No.
So, I mean, it is concluded that Pamela's murder had been sexually motivated. And, yeah, as we say, the perpetrator had intended to fully dismember the body, but it had either been interrupted or something that happened that had caused them to stop and then just dump what they had.
It's so strange to attempt to dismember her and to remove the organs.
Yeah, but to remove the inside bits.
And then the head and the arms and the feet, you can imagine for identity.
Yeah. So, but I mean, not everything was removed. It was so specific. The stomach was still there. So they were able to look and say, okay, we think she had some Chinese food about 6 hours or so before she died. So it wasn't just take everything out. It was specifically the heart, kidney, liver, bladder.
You can eat those, not the bladder. Sorry, not the bladder.
So yeah, so they at the moment they think it's some sort of sexual motivation and attempting to dismember unsuccessfully the body.
Right. Sorry, everyone.
I think we probably need a break after that.
I think we do. I don't like it. Nick, we have our drinks.
We do.
And they're much needed.
Yes.
It was horrible.
No, I'm sorry. It's not a very nice story.
What on earth's happened to Pamela?
Well, so we found Pamela's body. But death in Beijing is not uncommon, really, at this point. I mean, every morning, literally every morning, bodies are recovered from the streets.
Wow.
So many were natural causes or suicides. People were just desperate. A lot of refugees, sort of with just no other option nowhere to go, have to take their own lives. But there are no shortage of murders either. You have Japanese forces being sneaky and infiltrating the city, taking out sort of key opponents and things like that. You have a chap called General Song, who is in sort of military control of the city on behalf of the Chinese. He has taken out a personal mission to get rid of all the drugs within the city. Yeah. Any means necessary, really. So
not murdering everyone.
Pretty much, or he will happily send people for execution and stuff like that. No trial or anything like that.
As a warning.
Exactly. And if anyone he's got a personal slight against happens to get in the way, oh no, what a shame.
It's not really a war on drugs, is it, so much?
It's a war on people he doesn't like, disguised as a war on the drug trade.
That man has a mushroom. Hang him.
Yeah, and then obviously you've got the usual criminal activity that goes along with poverty and all this sort of stuff, sort of rival gangs and what have you. So there's no shortage of bodies. Yeah. But a white European woman does stand out from the norm, really. They know it's going to attract the attention of the press and senior diplomats.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Why am I saying it like that? Diplomats.
I mean, I don't think it's incorrect. It's just weird.
Sounds weird. Yeah.
Diplomats.
I'm going to say it like that from now on. So Colonel Han knows he's got limited time before other deaths pile up, and his superiors are going to start going, you need to move on to other stuff.
Well,
So come on. Now, as I said before, so despite him having jurisdiction, as Pamela's body had been found outside the legation walls, both he and Commissioner Thomas knows that the investigation will take him inside, where he has no authority, and probably most of the people in there will have some sort of diplomatic immunity or friends in high places and stuff like that. So it's decided that the investigation in the legation is going to be conducted by a European.
Okay.
They are much more likely to get answers than the Chinese colonel would. So Detective Chief Inspector Dennis, a Scotland Yard veteran, who is currently working at the British legation in Tianjin, he is drafted up to Beijing to take over the European aspect of the investigation, working alongside Colonel Han, who is doing the Chinese side of things.
Yeah, Scotland Yard coming.
So they've got Scotland Yard on the case, absolutely. Now, he is supposedly seen as impartial. Because he's not from the Beijing.
Well, he's not from the area.
He's not from the area, so he doesn't know people. And the theory being that he cannot be... He is there to dig out the truth no matter what, whereas the local sort of authorities are more likely to succumb to pressure from authorities and stuff like that. And that's the idea. We shall see. I mean, a lot of the diplomats who were there, their mission now is to ensure that the British image isn't damaged by this occurrence, by this murder. So
it's all feeling a
so
bit...
everyone has their own agenda really on how this crime is investigated and hopefully solved.
Yeah, and we can acknowledge it's all desperately uncomfortable looking back, as in, oh, but my God, a white woman died. Yeah. All the other people don't matter, doesn't matter. But let's make sure that no one thinks poorly of white people in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the investigation gets underway, and they start to speak to members of the community around where Pamela lived, and to see who might have seen or heard something. And they find a neighbour, a lady called Helen Foster Snow.
Just a lot of names.
Helen Foster Snow, who confided that she believes that Pamela may have been killed by accident, or that actually that she was the intended target. That it was a case of mistaken identity.
Really?
That actually Helen had been the target, and they did look similar-ish. Helen and her husband as well were both quite political, and they were outspoken critics of the Kuomintang government at the time. So they frequently wrote pro-communist articles, and it was not uncommon for the government to send assassins to deal with people who disagreed with them. That was not uncommon, but usually it was a bullet to the head.
Yes,
it was not this frenzied, brutal assault. So so they do consider this and say, and they think, well, government political assassinations, not uncommon. It happens.
No.
But would they do it in this way?
No, and exactly. And the father has enough links as well that would justify it. That does sound like I know it's in isolation. I'm hearing it in isolation. That does sound like Helen went, this is about me.
This is all about me.
This is all about me. Yeah. How can I make me the centre of all of this? And maybe it was much more nuanced than this, but I'm taking the line of fuck off, Helen.
Yes, I was the one who was meant to be killed.
It's me. Everyone's jealous of me. She does this a lot.
Yeah. So they do dismiss this possibility. So eventually, Colonel Han orders police to canvass the areas that Pamela might have travelled through on their way home. So what is the most direct route from the ice skating rink to her home? Talk to people in that area. There was a particular area that sat just outside the legation quarter that had been given the nickname the Badlands.
No, that's not a good place to cycle through.
So the Badlands.
Not the Badlands.
No. It's full of brothels, full of gambling dens,
Sounds great.
Yeah, full of drug places. Yeah,
and murders.
Emporiums. Assassins for hire. I mean,
you just go in there, people are shooting at you instantly.
It generally caters primarily for the Europeans who want something no questions asked type thing. Who want to go to a bar, get fucked up, go and see a sex worker, do whatever they want to do.
Yeah.
Got the money, no one cares.
No one cares.
Type thing. So it's and if you get your pocket picked in a way where it's your own fucking fault for being there.
Exactly. Yeah. It was called the Badlands.
So yeah.
So was she saying? Was she at a crossroads? Bless her, like going Badlands, lovely, lovely lane of not death, and she went, you know what? That's a bit shorter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, her friends go. She would never have done that. She would never have gone through there. She knows better. But they think, well, was she in a rush? She wanted to get home. It did shorten the journey going through this, but she would have known about the reputation of this area. It's also an area where a lot of the refugees who couldn't get into the legation quarter, they would shack up in various squats and horrible places. So a lot of poverty. A lot of people would do anything for a coin. He goes, check everywhere. He also has officers check every registered car in the Beijing area.
Oh, okay.
Not a huge amount of automobiles in the sort of late 30s. Enough, but realising that...
Because her body's been transported,
Well, exactly.
hasn't it?
She's been killed somewhere and dumped here. Now, and a car would be the most obvious and useful transportation device. So
Yes.
check all the cars.
Good idea, good
yeah,
idea.
Absolutely. It doesn't hurt. Yeah.
So she's been dumped outside the walls of legation
Yep.
area. I'm only just putting that together as it seems like a statement, maybe?
Maybe. Well,
Or do they think that
it's someone
she
who can't
belonged
get
in there?
Someone who can't get in there.
Dumped there.
And she's dumped on the
Weird,
outskirts.
though. But still.
So I think, okay, well, yeah, a car may have been used. So
Yeah.
check all the cars. A week after the crime has been committed, a Russian landlady in the Badlands tells police about finding a bloodied dagger and cloth in the possession of one of her tenants.
And that doesn't seem like it would be an abnormal thing in the Badlands. But maybe this was a particularly large
It's
one.
particularly bloody and a particularly daggery.
I don't normally find them before 9 a.m.
And this is a chap by the name of Pinfold. We don't know his first name. but
Pinfold? Pinfold or Penfold?
Pinfold.
Pinfold.
Penfold is a cartoon.
Is Danger Mouse's assistant.
Yes.
We always knew he had a dodgy side.
So Penfold, he was brought in for questioning. Now, he is a deserter. He's Canadian. He's a deserter for the Canadian Army who fled into the US, built up a criminal record in the US,
Nice.
fled into China.
Good. So he's got experience.
So he's got experience of being underhanded criminal. When he was in China, he became a bit of a strong man, bit of a muscle for some of the local gangs.
Oh, I'm sorry, Muscle Pie. I thought you meant he was
not
lifting.
in the circus.
I thought he was lifting anvils. Like, well, good for him.
Bit of a bodyguard, muscle for hire.
Muscle for hire.
Type character.
Called Pinfold.
Called Pinfold. He was also recognised by some of the officers as having been at Pamela's crime scene when the crime scene was discovered. He was amongst the crowd.
There. And
he had been noticed
not
amongst
uncommon.
the crowd.
Yes, everyone goes like, why would you return to the scene of the crime? No, people are compelled.
People do. People want to see. So some people go, no, I saw him. He was definitely there, and that makes people think, ooh, yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Something a bit weird. So they bring in him. He refuses to say anything. He keeps his mouth shut.
Yeah, he knows too much.
Yeah, but they do search him, and they find
They find 2 huge anvils on him. Sorry. All right, we're doing these. Well, that's just my day job. Sorry.
They don't find that, but they find a card for a bar at 27 Chunbang in the Badlands. A particular bar.
Okay, I like this.
A bar that was known to be the front of a brothel. No.
This is like a noir, you know. They gotta go check. They found a card. Oh, this is like One-Eyed Jacks. That's like Twin Peaks. Sorry, but still.
So Pamela would have known better than to shortcut through the Badlands. However, if she had, her route would have taken her straight past this particular bar. She would have cycled straight past the front of it. So the authorities decided, right, we need to go and have a chat with the people in this bar. So they raid the bar.
Oh well, yeah. Because no one's going to speak voluntarily.
No, indeed. So they just go in,
break it up. Yeah.
They find nothing, but the owner, he has plenty to say about Pinfold.
Okay.
Yeah, he has plenty to say. He says Pinfold actually works at the bar next door. He doesn't work here. He works next door at the rival bar. He was also known to work at nudist gatherings. There was some nudist gatherings that took place in sort of cottages in the hills outside the city, in the western hills outside Beijing. Yeah, these sort of...
I feel like you're going to explain.
Well, they were Pinfold was quizzed on these gatherings.
You're making a lot of hand gestures.
And do you remember our episode on the... Was it Happy Valley?
Happy Valley? Yes.
That sort of vibe. It was an area where some very rich Europeans had places, and they would have particular parties,
right,
of a weekend or so,
where anything goes.
Anything goes. A lot of ladies were hired, for entertainment purposes. And rich white men would go and have a jolly old time.
Old-fashioned version of the Diddy party.
Yeah, and Pinfold admits that he had been there, but as security. He had not partaken in these parties, but he had been there as security.
To the nudist gatherings.
And he had also been there as a driver bringing forth ladies from the city up to these houses.
Oh, this is sounding desperately uncomfortable.
Transporting, sex workers to and from these parties. It was found out that these parties were organised by an American chap, a dentist by the name of Wentworth Prentice.
Ooh, he sounds evil.
And so they're basically an excuse for rich expats to get drunk and have sex with busloads of women. Really?
Oh.
that's what they did.
Yep. Okay. But I'm thinking this is very much weighted towards the men's.
Oh yeah,
ideas.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, most certainly.
Oh God, this plot thickens.
DCI Dennis, the Scotland Yard inspector, goes to speak with Wentworth at his home next to the skating rink. And when the inspector arrives, the flat is stripped bare. It's completely empty. Doors and windows are open, and the entire place is being redecorated, being freshly painted.
What the fuck is happening?
And yeah, the inspector goes, it's the middle of January. It's fucking freezing. It's snowing outside. Well, you've got all the
you're redecorating
and now you
now?
decide to redecorate. Oh no, it's the landlord. The landlord decides to do it. It's not me because he rents the place. And they go, fine.
Oh my God.
So he's there. I mean, so yeah, he asks, do you know Pamela Werner? Have you ever treated her in a dentist capacity, sort of thing? Or do you know her socially or anything like that? No, never heard of the woman. Now I've heard about her since she's been killed, but I've never met her, never heard about her. No idea what's going on there. They ask him about the parties in the hills. And there's nothing illegal. And there wasn't technically anything illegal about these gatherings. They may have been unsavoury. But
you can't prove any money has exchanged hands or anything.
And even you couldn't even matter at that time.
I suppose it doesn't.
So the rules were rather different. Then it was nothing illegal that they knew had occurred. So yeah, it was a group of men to get together, having fun. What's your problem?
God, this really is feeling like One-Eyed Jacks and like Hazel Drew and everything. Oh my God.
And the detective knew, well, okay, fine. I've got nothing on this one. So that's the end of the conversation, really. I mean, he says, Wentworth goes on, he was at the cinema the evening that Pamela went missing. He had the ticket stubs and what have you. The following day, there was a front page article written by a chap called George Gorman in the English language paper that went on a huge rant about how dare the authorities suspect such an upstanding citizen as Wentworth Prentice.
Oh, he's on the payroll.
He's entirely innocent. He is the hub of society. He is the nicest man who's ever lived.
That reporter has been at the parties. That reporter's been at the parties.
How dare you? It was obviously a Chinese man has done this. How dare the authorities suspect Westerners and all this sort of stuff. And so this article came out the next day. Then, more bad luck for the authorities. The tests on the bloody cloth and the dagger that Pinfold had been found with returned as not human. It was animal blood. So they now have absolutely nothing to hold Pinfold on. So what
if the people doing the tests were also at the parties? Maybe I've got too far. But
they're forced to release him. He is never seen again. He vanishes. He leaves the city and no one knows what happened to him.
Well, I wish he hadn't, but smart. For all the people who hang around for a while afterwards, knows when to run. Clearly.
Now, I mean, during all of this, Edward Werner, the father, he is fuming at the lack of progress, or what he sees as the lack of progress. The only suspect they've just released, for fuck's sake. What are they playing at? And he takes matters into his own hands, and he holds a press conference on the steps of the British legation. In Beijing, and he fumes at the authorities. Letting go their only suspect, believing that their lack of progress was due to them not wanting to find a Westerner guilty, because it looks bad on the Europeans. So they think it's a half-arsed investigation because they don't want to find who's responsible. If it turns out to be a Westerner, makes them look bad.
I mean,
So, and they don't want to cause this embarrassment. He appeals directly to the Chinese community, and he pretty much adds his life savings to a reward pot. So this pot now is over 5,000 Chinese gold dollars.
Yeah.
This reward money. This is triple what the average Chinese family would earn in 3 lifetimes.
Wow. This
is a staggering amount of money to your average Chinese person.
Fair play,
to
mate.
Say,
fair play.
Come forward
with hard evidence.
With information about this, and you'll be up for a portion of this. One of the other things that he rails against the British is that all this is only printed in English. The authorities are sort of keeping this back from the Chinese, thinking that if they know there's this huge reward, they are much more likely to say, it was Bob Jones. It was him, whatever. So
it was a European.
So keep the Chinese out of it.
Yes, they're being very selective
and they're
how
being
they
very
share
selective
the information.
about who knows about this reward and things. So that's one of the things that Edward is railing against.
Yeah. On one hand, you'd go, why wouldn't the Europeans, if there was a killer on the loose, and just say this person does not represent us, one person doesn't represent an entire nation. But at a time, apparently, of such conflict and so much fractious sort of relations in Beijing, Is it the sort of thing that could tip something over the
Yeah,
edge?
well, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Because
No.
you would think just like, no, just like, it was him, not us.
No, but one counts for all in this sort of situation. One British person did it, then they're all bastards type
Yeah,
thing.
just enough to raise up, and especially if you've got a lot of revolutionaries
Yeah.
and a lot of people rising up and saying, well, this is what they do.
After Edward's sort of press conference, Colonel Han and DCI Dennis, they are ordered never to speak to Werner again. You cannot speak to the father. Do not fill him in the investigation as it goes. If he asks for questions, do not talk to this man.
What the actual fuck? It's his daughter.
Yeah. Well, they think, well, he's obviously been overcome by grief. He's behaving irrationally. He's making these statements and things like that, so he can't be trusted. So you just ignore him, leave him be. After a month in Beijing, DCI Dennis is recalled to Tianjin.
Yeah.
There are no other leads. Colonel Han is pressured to take on more recent cases, and slowly Pamela's file gets further down the pile, forgotten by everyone eventually, except for Edward, who is still railing against the British government, writing letters to everyone, speaking to everyone about trying to get this case back in the public eye. Newspapers have long forgotten it by now.
Yeah.
And eventually the case is officially closed in June as unsolved.
Bloody hell.
Fun. Edward, well, he takes it upon himself to continue this investigation.
Yeah.
He is not going to let this lie. He becomes convinced that Wentworth Prentice is responsible for his daughter's death, the dentist.
I've just made that connection. Wentworth Prentice, the dentist.
Wentworth Prentice, the dentist.
Did he just pick the first profession that sounded cool next to his name? Bastard.
So Edward, he reads through Pamela's diary, and he reads an entry about her visiting Wentworth just 5 weeks prior for some dental work.
Okay.
So
coincidence, maybe.
Well, but he has sworn blind that he had never met Pamela, even in a professional capacity.
Oh, God.
He had never. But 5 weeks ago, she had been a
was
patient.
as a patient.
He was straight only
he would
5
have a
weeks
record
prior,
that he would know.
and he said, no, never met her before in my life.
Oh, God.
So obviously he thinks, well, he's got something to hide. He's been lying about knowing Pamela. Edward also reads in Pamela's diary about how the summer of the previous year, 1936, she had travelled to the Western Hills outside of Beijing. She had been taken there by a school friend and her family. The father, a chap called George Gorman, is the one who wrote the article defending Prentice in the paper.
Shut up.
While there, she wrote that he had made unwanted sexual advances.
No.
She had rebuffed them, and he, at the time, she wrote, seemed very contrite and apologetic about making such a thing, and she returned home, unharmed or anything like that. But she had witnessed these gatherings.
Yes.
My God. And
God.
never told her father or anyone else about being there.
So she'd gone up there with a family and a friend.
Yeah,
but then it was in that area.
But in that area, yeah.
Father had made advances.
Yeah.
Whether he'd gone to one of those parties, was trying to get her to go. Or
I think that's the implication is they were trying to groom her to go to these parties with a lot of other Western expats and things like that for
Jesus.
sex. But yeah, she probably been about 19 at the time.
So rejected.
And yeah, came home unscathed, but had written about this in her diary. Edward, he's convinced more and more that Gorman Wentworth, they're in on it together. Something has happened up at these parties, and that has resulted in his daughter's death. They wanted her to go. She refused.
She knew too much.
She had seen something, and she had come to a horrible, horrible end.
So had her diaries been authenticated? Just to again play devil's advocate here?
That I don't know.
Okay.
As far as I know, it's just
question to ask.
Yeah, he was reading these diaries after the event and had discovered this information.
Right.
He told this to the police, but by this point,
the police aren't interested.
The police aren't interested.
No.
They've got bigger problems to worry about now. The Japanese forces are getting closer and closer to the city.
Yeah.
They're not so worried about a woman who died 8 months ago. Sorry, it's terrible, but we've got bigger problems right now. In 1943, so 5 years or so after the murder, Edward is still in Beijing, still writing to the British Foreign Office saying this needs to be reopened. He is still, every time he can, confronting Wentworth Prentice about murdering his daughter. Yeah, in 1943, Japan invades Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
They've also taken over Most of China by this point, all remaining Europeans in China are rounded up and sent to a camp. The various camps in China. Werner and Wentworth Prentice end up in the same camp. And again, even there, Edward is banging on about how guilty this man is and that he needs to confess.
Yeah, I'm going to side with him on this. If your daughter has been horrifically murdered, you're probably not going to let up on the person you think has killed her.
No, well, indeed. After the war, Edward returns to Beijing. He's one of 30 British nationals living there when Mao Zedong wins the Civil War and forms the People's Republic of China, which is in 1949. Eventually, he does return to England and he dies in 1954, never having seen justice for his daughter. Curious thing that happens later, which may come up in a Patreon episode. In 2013, his letters and his correspondence to the UK government, to the diplomatic service, are found in some dusty corner of a basement by a chap called Paul French, who goes on to write the best-selling book Midnight in Peking.
Wow.
Which is all about Pamela's murder.
Yeah.
And he writes it from very much taking Edward's sort of evidence as gospel. And creating this scenario based on the evidence he gets from Edward's letters. There's another chap who comes along who completely disputes that and goes to someone else. So there's been a big sort of rivalry in books, only in sort of the past 10 years or so, about who was actually responsible. Was it Wentworth Prentice? Was it someone entirely different?
Yeah.
And a number of theories have come out, but that's for another time potentially.
Oh my God!
There's a story of the unsolved murder of Pamela Werner.
Wow!
A lot going on there.
There is a lot going on there. Happy birthday, Nick. Oh, God. That's a brilliant story.
Wow.
And that's got shades of Hazel Drew. That's got the woman who inspired Laura Palmer. Again, like with the evidence presented there, I'm fully on board with massive conspiracy theory. Oh yeah, all these white men up in the hills and out in the outskirts with their sex rooms. But again, bringing sex workers up there, or bringing women up there and treating them as nothing, and then murdering them, assaulting them, and then leaving them for dead.
Yeah. Or murdering them because they wouldn't go with them.
Well,
that's the way that Edward goes, in that his daughter refuses to be part of this, so she's killed because she refuses. That's his interpretation of events, obviously. We don't know.
I think it seems like it's likely. Yeah. I mean, that may be a father's perspective on it.
Yes.
Whether she went there willingly and things got out of hand, or whether she absolutely didn't want to go there and these men are just stung by their ego and gone, okay, fine, if you won't go there, we'll bloody take you there. And then what happened, which is a horrible, horrible thought. I mean, either way, it's horrific. But yeah, it does seem strange that the dentist knew her and then denied all knowledge of her. Is that a panic move? Is that someone going, oh, I don't want to be implicated in this? The journalist? She has gone away with him before? If this is all true, and again, have to play devil's advocate, have her journals been authenticated? A father desperate for information? You don't know what could be interpreted and is put across. True. Again, you have to say that. But if it's true, if it's written down and if it's in there, it's a compellingly dark and twisty, horrible, horrible story. In Pinfold, who was driving people around. I mean, this is the stuff great novels are made of. I'm assuming this has been adapted.
Novels have been made.
Yes, right. Okay, so yeah, I'm assuming this has been adapted into films and stories.
I don't know if films and things have been made. It's certainly into books.
Oh, I don't know how to feel about any of that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so rich and complex. Oh, poor Pamela. Poor Pamela. Was she cycling through the area? Did she know? Did she have a second life? Or was she a victim of circumstance? What happened? I demand answers.
Okay.
I demand answers.
We'll see what we can do.
Wow. Well, perhaps Nick will share more about this story on Patreon next week. But what do you think, people? What do you think of this compelling, bizarre story of Pamela Werner's murder in Beijing? Do you think this was a huge conspiracy, as the father would have it? Do you think that Pamela was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time? Do you think the father was clutching at straws to blame someone? Do you think there was more at play because of the social and political circumstances around it? Do you think it was just very random?
Was it a case of mistaken identity and it's all about Helen?
Was it all about Helen? Was it all about Helen
Wasn't all about Helen.
I don't think it was all about Helen. Ugh, Jesus Christ. Tell us what you think. Jump on the comments of this episode. Share your thoughts, your feelings, your theories. You can do that on social media. You can do that over on Patreon. But most importantly, while you are pondering, you must mix up a China martini. Oh, it was delightful.
It was very, very tasty.
Really nice.
Yeah, I mean, lychee liqueur is not something that everyone's going to have. I'll give you that.
No, not difficult to get hold of.
Not difficult to get hold of. I mean,
not...
I bought it on Amazon and things like that, so not difficult to get hold of.
And it'll last a while.
Yes, if you don't mind having a bottle lying around for about 6 years.
But you can also have, it's one of those, a sipping liqueur, like a little measure of it.
You could do if you wanted something really pretty fruity.
I've done that.
And it's very nice. It's very lychee flavoured.
Very
floral.
floral.
If you like lychee, then go for it.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, you can have a little sip of it, but you can make up a couple of blinding cocktails, as we have done in the past. Go to the Poisonous Cabinet website and type in lychee to have the history of our lychee cocktails. Mix one of those up.
That's where we will be out very soon. So you can mix one up for yourself.
Happy birthday, Nick, as well.
Thank you.
If anyone would like a shout out on the show, you can DM us on Patreon, or you can send us an email, or you can DM us. Probably on Instagram is the best place. I know not everyone uses it, but however you can, just send us a quick DM and you can send us reminders if we happen to not have seen anything, if we haven't replied. We're very happy to give shout outs. Please do consider joining us on Patreon if you want to support the show and get more content. And please leave us a 5-star review on Apple iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening, guys. We have been the people inside the Poisoner's Cabinet. We will see you next week. And remember, your loved ones are trying to kill you.